Hey everyone, it's Andrew, and I'm doing a walk and talk, mostly because we haven't done one in a while, and secondly, it's just too beautiful not to do one. And I think it kind of, sort of relates to what we're going to talk about today. Basically, I'm just using any excuse to stitch together a reason to do one of these walking videos, and the topic of today. Today, I want to talk to you about your spiritual capital. Now, what I'm talking about kind of like the spiritual currency that you spend in your life. And I'm not talking about like, holiness points or sanctification credits that you get to spend on your life. Like, I've done so many good deeds that I get to, get into heaven or something like that. That's not really how it works. At least I don't think so. And I'm not talking about I was a really good moral and ethical person yesterday, so I can be a real scumbag today, because it's all gonna balance out. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the resources you have in your own spiritual life and how you walk in faith. Let me backtrack. So it might surprise some of you who know me well to hear that I really enjoy reading leadership books and time management books and all of those kind of get things done or all of those kind of systems of organizing, because for those who've known me for a long time, I might not always be described as the most organized person. I'm ADD. I've got a very flippant sense of attention and stick-to-itiveness, and so it's really difficult for me to organize myself in a super organized kind of way. So the organization I do have in my work life, in my study life when I was a student, comes with a lot of hard work behind it. And as I came across methodologies of getting myself organized and put together, I found out that I really kind of like it. It turns out I really like spreadsheets. I really like, taking notes and keeping track of things. I love to-do lists. I mean, there's a reason I keep a pad of paper in my pocket at all times, because I need to jot things down so that I know what I'm doing. Anyway, all that to say is that I've been reading some leadership books, mostly meant for business executives and people like that, people who are working with teams. Because I think that those business ideas and team leadership ideas really do help how you would even work as a minister to people, but also just as anyone who works in an office with others. And so I have been reading all these leadership books recently that have really sparked a lot of inspiration in how I'm getting things done around the church, both in a office type situation, but also as a pastor, working with a group of people. And all that to say is that it had me thinking a lot about sort of the spiritual capital I have in my life. And when I say that, I'm trying to think of how I'm going to use my time and my talents as a Christian. And so for me, the first thing I think of is like prayer life. There are only so many hours in the day. I'm gonna try to get out of the wind for a second. There are only so many hours in the day. And so every hour is spent, doing the laundry, taking care of your work, driving to school, reading, having downtime, doing silly things or hobby things. And so any time that we have to give to God is time that we really have to carve out and set aside. Now, how we react and reflect with God, how y'all doing? How we react and reflect can take lots of different forms, whether it's actual intentional prayer. I'm going to definitely pray for 20 minutes today at this time, or I'm going to meditate for 5 minutes today at this time. Or it could be just doing chores and activities with a mindful intention to do it in a prayerful way, whether it's, cleaning your house, but doing it as a prayer with your hands, basically turning a physical labor or chore into a sort of prayer. I've talked about intentional living on these reflections before, and so carving out time in that way is really important. But however you choose to spend your time with God, make a plan and do it, because that's how you're going to spend some of your spiritual capital. That's how you're going to carve out time for God in your daily life. But I also want to talk about your talents. This is something we don't think of a lot of times, especially during stewardship time. We think about the check that I put in the offering plate, or the pledge that I give every year. I mean, those are certainly extremely important. Don't let me diminish that gift, because frankly the operation of the church itself just would stop if we didn't have your pledges. But I want to talk about a less thought of way that we offer, and that's with your talents. If you have a love of cooking or baking, did you know that there is an immediate need that you could help with the church? You could help bake communion bread. You could help bake a loaf that we give to a visitor. You could help bake a casserole that is frozen and stored in our freezer, anticipating someone who comes back from the hospital, and we can just give them immediately a meal. Things like that. If you have a love of organizing, there are certainly logistics that need to happen at the church. If you have a love of just hanging out and chilling with people, there is a way that your fellowship can add to the benefit of the community. All of these are ways that our talents can help. If you have a professional skill, like with building or plumbing or things like that, there are certainly ways that our parish could benefit from your skill. Or if you have another professional skill like, financial planning, or organizing being a manager, in a workforce situation, helping manage acolytes or readers or any one of those things. Now, we have volunteers who have been doing that work, but I'm always interested in making sure that everyone has a job or has a place where they feel that they are needed. Because let's face it, sometimes when we come to church, we want to do anything that is unlike our job, because we don't want to just keep doing our regular professional type work at church. We'd rather have a break from our profession and our professional skill and do something totally different. And I get that. But then other times, we want to find a way to be needed, and it's not always self-evident, especially if the kind of things that you're being asked to do are maybe upfront things like, public speaking or teaching or childcare or youth ministry. Those are kind of upfront things that a lot of people may not really want to do or have an interest in doing, and that is totally fine. There are lots of behind the scenes, more introspective things that are needed. So again, it's deciding where our spiritual capital, where the gains and assets that we have can be invested into the life of the church. And when I say the life of the church, I'm not just talking about the physical plant. I'm talking about the community of this faithful that we call Redeemer. So how can you help support the family, as it were? I ask you to prayerfully consider that. Think about it. Is there something you've always wanted to do? A skill or interest that you've wanted to test out and try? Well, maybe church is an area that you can use to do that. Maybe you can help flex some untested muscles by getting things done at Redeemer. In the coming weeks, as soon as I can do it, there's going to be a survey that's going to ask you these kinds of questions. What are some skills, interests, strengths that you have? And then we can take that information and maybe direct you toward a way that you could help. Maybe a way that you or me or the church as a whole had not considered. So look for that. But not just the survey. The survey is certainly important. For the purpose of this reflection, I just would like to just challenge you to look at your walk of faith, especially in the hours outside of church, and ask yourself, what is the spiritual capital that I am spending throughout the day or throughout the week? How does that look? And are there changes that I want to see made? You could ask yourself, how am I doing? Do I feel that I'm living into my spiritual best? And depending on what your answer is, you just would ask yourself, well, yes or no. Or I'm doing pretty good, but I want to tweak this or tweak that. And just make those adjustments as you see fit. And how do you make those adjustments? Well, you pray about it. Pretty much the answer to everything in the church is, well, you pray about it. Because God, the Holy Spirit, will work in you to help you discern a vocation of spiritual growth and formation. And that is why the people of Redeemer are here for you. Because Christianity is best lived in community. In fact, I would say really the only successful way is to live Christianity in community. So let's see what we could do. Perhaps your skill really is in conversation with the homebound and just checking in with people and being a friend on the phone. Maybe your skill is something even more laid back, like writing letters to people, making gift baskets. Who knows? So if you feel that there is a direction that the Holy Spirit is calling you, and you want to spend your spiritual capital on this walk of faith, then let me know. I would love to engage with you in conversation to help discern ways in which you could help, because I promise you, yes, you can help us today. Thank you for this meditation. Thank you for joining me on this walk. And as always, dear ones, God bless.